always on the go, but the day just won't be one without your Hollywood fix. Let Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast take care of that. An all-inclusive look of pop culture.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Entertainment Podcast, brought to you by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Patrick Kennedy. All right, this is my first episode, so I will give you a little background on me. I am broadcasting to you all from Salt Lake City, Utah, where I hail from. I have lived here most of my life, but I've also lived in LA and New York and will likely end up moving back to one of those cities or another large city once I finish school. Speaking of school, I am a full-time communications student with a focus on journalism and digital media. After finishing school, I would love to have a career in broadcasting in some capacity, whether it be podcasting, radio, or television. And with that said, I've had a passion for journalism and broadcasting for many years, and also live and breathe all things entertainment. So I'm very excited to have the opportunity to dive into this with you all. And outside of that, I love to travel, spend time with friends, family. I love staying fit, camping when it's warm here. We have so many amazing spots in Utah and get to experience all 4 seasons, which is really fun and very pretty. Okay, enough about me. I'll give you a little rundown on what we're going to be talking about in today's episode. We will be covering the rather intense Part 1 Teen Mom OG Season 9 reunion, Demi Lovato's frozen yogurt meltdown, the future of Jeopardy, and you will definitely want to stick around for the end of the show for Patrick's pop culture pick, which this week I will be talking about the Oscars. So definitely stick around for that. All right, let's get into it. Teen Mama Drama. On Tuesday, Part 1, the Season 9 Teen Mom OG reunion aired after much anticipation. And let's just say things heated up and nearly got physical between a couple of the cast members. If you're unfamiliar with the show or do not watch it, it is a spin-off of MTV's 16 and Pregnant, which is a pretty self-explanatory show as to what that's about, just from hearing the title. And it follows 5 of the now grown women, then teens, of that show and documents their experiences with young motherhood. I have personally been a fan of 16 and Pregnant and Teen Mom since their air dates back in 2009. So at times I feel like I am a full-blown member of these girls' families. Anyway, getting back to this week's reunion, as many of you know, Amber Portwood, one of the teen moms, has had and still struggles with many difficulties that have been documented on the show. From her physical abuse on her baby's father at that time, Gary Shirley, father of her firstborn, Leah, which was captured on the show, and her subsequent stay in jail for that. She's also had a lot of substance abuse and toxic relationships, one of which with Matt Beyer. If you remember, it was highly speculated that he was only with her for the recognition and the money, and he was trying to get book deals. And he had also messaged a few of the other teen moms prior to dating Amber. They both struggled with substance abuse and were accused of being abusive towards each other, and you definitely saw the screaming matches between the two of them on the show. Finally, her most recent relationship with Andrew Glennon Amber and Andrew share a 1-year-old son together. However, share is likely not the appropriate word to use because, as we saw this season, she has not really been able to see him due to the controversy that happened with Andrew in 2019, where she allegedly threatened Andrew with a machete and was arrested for domestic battery. There's also leaked audio of Amber threatening to kill Andrew, along with a number of other things, disturbing things. So that's a little backstory on Amber Portwood for you as I lead into her segment on the first part of this reunion. As you can imagine, with Amber going through all that she has, her daughter Leah has spent most of her time in custody with her father, Gary, and his wife, which was a point of contention this season when Leah expressed her feelings on the matter and quite frankly wanted next to nothing to do with her mother, Amber. This, of course, upset Amber, and instead of taking accountability, in my opinion, she was very defensive and blamed all of this on Gary and his wife, Christina. During the reunion, she makes her dislike for Christina, Gary's wife, very clear by saying things like she's absolutely horrible, among other things, and then Amber proceeds to storm off of the set, refusing to film anymore. It's really unfortunate that she was unable to just sit down and have an adult conversation and get some of this cleared up, because I'm afraid it will likely only push her daughter Leah further away. It does look like we will hear more from Gary and Christina in part 2 of the reunion, so definitely do not want to miss that. And now, getting to what everyone was looking forward to, this reunion episode. Over the last couple of weeks, there have been headlines on multiple outlets mentioning that there was a very heated exchange between teen mom Macy McKinney, her husband Taylor McKinney, and the parents of her ex, Ryan Edwards, who is the father of her firstborn, Bentley. There were a lot of connections there. I hope you were able to follow and keep up with that. Anyway, Macy and her ex, Ryan, have had issues since 16 and Pregnant aired back in 2009. Each season, there seems to be a new controversial thing happening with Ryan. He's been absent for most of Bentley's life, and his parents have stepped in to pick up some of that slack. They've had a pretty huge role in Bentley's life. Ryan has battled with drug abuse issues that we've seen on the show. One of them being in 2017, we see Ryan fall asleep at the wheel while clearly high on pain pills with his fiancée Mackenzie in the car on the way to their shotgun wedding. I mean, it just doesn't get much messier than that. She at some point has to grab the wheel, punch him in the shoulder to wake him up and avoid crashing the vehicle. You can imagine why Macy has been very protective over Bentley, and from that point on, very cautious about letting him around Ryan at all. She still allowed Ryan's parents to have a relationship with Bentley and was allowed to go over there and spend time with them, and occasionally Ryan would show up and have some supervised visitation with Bentley. But even that was just a quick hug and a snide comment, and then he was off, doing his own thing, and still appeared to be using, in my opinion. Now, I honestly could spend an entire episode on the Ryan and Macy saga, but I'll get back to what happened on the reunion this week. Ryan has not shown up for the reunion, so Macy and her now husband Taylor sit down to discuss what has occurred this season. Outside of all of the troubles with Ryan, Macy was also a bystander at a gas station near her town in an active shooting between police officers and a gunman, in which she was hit by flying glass from windows and could feel bullets flying past her. So a very traumatic experience in itself, outside of all of these other issues. Sitting across from Macy during the reunion are Ryan's parents. And after introductions are made by Dr. Drew, Taylor begins to express his disdain for Ryan and does not hold back by any means, calling him a coward, amongst many other harsh things. It's around that time that Ryan's dad kind of leans forward on the couch and gets closer to Taylor, which seemed a bit aggressive. So Taylor responded by doing the same. The two started arguing pretty intensely back and forth to the point that they end up standing up and getting close to each other as if things might get physical. Luckily, Ryan's mother is able to get control of her husband. Macy's able to kind of get control of Taylor, at least physically. But the two continue to shout at each other, profanities and whatnot, to the point where Taylor even calls Ryan's father a sorry son of a bleep. Of course, at that point, it leaves us hanging with the two screaming, still in a screaming match, and then, a to be continued on part 2. I've also seen in headlines that the Edwards family, so Ryan, his mother, his father, wife, they have all been fired from the show following this. Whew, a lot to unpack there. And we haven't even gotten into 3 of the other moms' stories just yet. Both Caitlin and Cheyenne are pregnant again. Caitlin with her 3rd and, as she says, final child, and Cheyenne with her 2nd child. Mackenzie has relocated her entire family to Florida from Oklahoma. She left her father, who has, health conditions behind, her sister, everything she knows behind in Oklahoma. And she's also struggling with marital issues with her husband, Josh. And as we've seen, he's been unfaithful in the past. Over this last season, it does appear that they are trying to reconcile those things, as he's come out to Florida from Oklahoma a couple of times and says, he wants to make the family work. So hopefully they can come to some sort of resolution with that, and we'll get to hear more from her on that. She's also dealt with her youngest son having some pretty intense behavioral issues. We saw in this season that he had bitten one of his teachers and actually drew blood, and that he was using the restroom on himself, and he's, I believe, 4 years old. So I'm sure she'll go into more of that and what measures she has taken to help him, which will be interesting to hear. I certainly will not be missing part 2 of the Teen Mom OG reunion, which airs on Tuesday on MTV. I'm also very excited for Teen Mom 2. Yes, you heard it right. There are more women from 16 and pregnant that MTV follows and that I am obsessed with watching, which will be airing on May 4th. And I'm especially excited about this one because they've added Ashley Jones from the series Young and Pregnant to replace Chelsea DeBoer, who decided to leave the show last season. The reason why I am particularly happy that MTV selected Ashley out of the, I believe, 4 other girls from the Young and Pregnant series is her storyline was just so much more interesting and has a lot to offer that I'm excited to catch up on and see. For those of you who have seen it, and I guess for those of you who haven't, just to kind of touch on her story, she and her baby's father, Bar, have had a lot of ups and downs in their relationship. There's also been some physical abuse allegations between the two of them. They're very off and on, a bit toxic at times. And Ashley has actually had a lot of confrontation with Bar's family, his mother in particular. On season 1 of Young and Pregnant, they actually get into a physical altercation Ashley, her sister, and Bar's mother, so her potential mother-in-law, because they are engaged. So just so much happening within that storyline. It will be interesting to pick up back on that for Teen Mom 2. All right, that wraps up our Teen Mom segment. Again, make sure to tune in to that next week. If you haven't tuned in, I recommend binging it.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now, don't bother, what's hot on Netflix, and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
All right, welcome back to the GSMC Entertainment Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Once again, I'm your host, Patrick Kennedy. Just to give you a little recap of what we have been talking about thus far on the show, I went over part 1 of the Teen Mom OG Season 9 reunion, which had me on the edge of my seat just about the entire time. I also touched on the upcoming season of Teen Mom 2 and the addition of Ashley Jones to the cast, who we have seen on another MTV series, Young and Pregnant. Also, just a reminder to stick around for the last segment, Patrick's Pop Culture Pick, in which I will be discussing the 93rd Academy Awards. All right, let's get back to it. This week, a very famous pop star had a bit of a meltdown, pun intended, over, get this, frozen yogurt. That's right. The American singer and former Disney star Demi Lovato had a very public feud with a Los Angeles frozen yogurt shop called The Big Chill. This happened on Monday of this week, and Demi decided to take to her Instagram story saying, quote, "Finding it extremely hard to order froyo from at the Big Chill official when you have to walk past tons of sugar-free cookies / other diet foods before you get to the counter," end quote. She accused the shop of being #diet culture vultures and using harmful messaging. Demi has been pretty vocal about her struggles with weight issues in the past. However, we have never seen her attack a local business for their variety of offerings in their shop. She then doubled down in her stories by saying, quote, "So I think I'm going to make that hashtag a thing. I will be calling harmful messaging from brands or companies that perpetuate a society that not only enables but praises disordered eating," end quote. And then again with the hashtag diet culture vultures. So the story gets better. The shop, The Big Chill, did not take this lying down and responded to Demi's post by saying that they are not vultures and are simply just trying to cater to all of their customers' needs, and then apologized if that was offensive to her. And I have to say that I commend the yogurt shop for not staying silent and speaking up and responding to her about this. I mean, not only is it a ridiculous thing to be upset about, in my opinion, but small businesses have had it hard enough as it is. As we know, they've had an even more difficult time during the pandemic, COVID-19. The shop is also located in Los Angeles, where we have seen some of the biggest numbers of COVID-19 cases, and they've experienced the hardest of the lockdowns compared to other cities around the country. Luckily, this is such a silly issue that I doubt it has or will have much effect on the frozen yogurt shop, The Big Chill. I mean, they've been in business for 36 years, so I'm sure they have a very loyal customer base. Because we have seen in other scenarios that businesses can be completely obliterated when celebrities or people in positions with a large influence, such as Demi, speak out against them. Like, they can get completely shut down from accusations like this, and not even so much accusations in this case, just ridiculousness. So Demi went on to say that she also had a horrible experience with the service at the shop, and that they should consider changing the labeling on their packaging to be more clear, and that they are specifically for vegans or people with celiac issues, instead of saying things like sugar-free or guilt-free. And as if that wasn't enough, she then went on IGTV, which is Instagram TV, where you can leave videos that, are a lot longer. You're able to do a lot longer of a runtime than you would be able to on Say Your Story. And she continued to vent about this, saying she was, quote unquote, triggered by the yogurt shop, and it affected her entire weekend. I mean, triggered is a very strong word, in my opinion, to use about something as sweet as frozen yogurt. I'm sorry, but she's coming off as a total privileged kind of brat in this scenario. People with diabetes can't have sugar. So if something is labeled sugar-free, what is the big problem with that, I ask? To bring this into more perspective, she's complaining about something so trivial during a time we are dealing with, a fatal shooting nearly every day in our country, the trial of Derek Chauvin, who has now been convicted of the murder of George Floyd. And while we are still very much dealing with a global pandemic. So just let all of that sink in, like I wish she would have. With all of the real issues happening around us, she decided to be mad at Froyo. Now, aside from what is now being referred to and trending as Demi Lovato Froyo, this isn't the first controversial and I dare say concerning story we have seen in the last few weeks regarding Demi. It is fairly common knowledge that Demi has been sober since her nearly fatal overdose with heroin laced with fentanyl. She struggled with substance abuse since her days on the Disney Channel, in fact. While she has a new documentary called Dancing with the Devil, which I have not yet seen, I have seen an older documentary of hers called Simply Complicated on YouTube, where she goes into detail about her struggle with weight at a very young age, an eating disorder, and how she was basically drunk and high on either Adderall or cocaine during most of her time with Disney. It even got so bad that one of her backup dancers had went to one of her managers out of concern, and Demi kind of went on this witch hunt to find out who had told on her, basically. And once she found out who it was, she physically assaulted this dancer. If I remember correctly, she punched the girl in the head as they were boarding the plane to go on the next stop of one of their Disney tours with the Jonas Brothers. So clearly this is someone that might have a substance abuse disorder and should remain sober. However, she recently did an interview with CBS Sunday Morning announcing that she is, quote unquote, California sober. Now, you're probably wondering what on earth that means, as I certainly was when I first heard it, and I will explain. Apparently, this means she drinks alcohol and smokes marijuana in moderation. Since she has come out and said this, people close to her have expressed that this is a concern and they are worried about the approach she is taking. Her manager, Scooter Braun, being one of them, saying he doesn't totally agree with her decision, but he also does not want to push her away, which is certainly understandable. However, after being found completely unconscious and rushed to the hospital 3 years ago, this method to me does not sound like the right approach, but what do I know? Experts have also chimed in on being California sober and shared their thoughts, calling it a form of harm reduction. In harm reduction, I guess a person uses strategies to manage their substance use and reduce the negative or life-threatening effects from drugs and alcohol. And while the approach is controversial, it is said that some people are able to manage their drug use through harm reduction strategies. So with that said, and while I can't help but feel that this is kind of a slap in the face to those who choose complete sobriety and struggle to do so, I do sincerely hope that this works out for Demi and others that are using this method. I also hope that by her speaking out about this and also titling one of her songs on her latest album, California Sober, that it doesn't sway those who have been successful with complete sobriety to go down this path and potentially pick up harmful behaviors again. You know, like I mentioned with the Froyo incident, her influence on what she chooses to speak out on can be very damaging. And in this case, it could affect people's well-being in so many ways. I realize that this segment is kind of coming off as me being a total Demi Lovato hater, and I just want to clarify that that is not the case at all. I think she has, just like many people in her position do at times, found herself in a series of unfortunate events, if you will. She isn't all bad, and let's not forget that she was also diagnosed with bipolar disorder in 2011, which could definitely be and likely is a huge factor in all of these things that I have mentioned. Because of this, she was in yet another documentary called Stay Strong, in which she shares her story about her struggles and hopes to help others with similar issues. She also went into detail on the documentary on going to a treatment facility and how much that helped her accept her diagnosis. You also may have seen the Talkspace commercials with celebrity endorsements. And for those of you not familiar with Talkspace, it's an online mobile therapy company. So basically it's therapy in the palm of your hand. You can use it on your phone, your computer, tablet, things of that nature. And Demi is one of the latest celebrities to partner with Talkspace alongside Olympic swimmer Michael Phelps. He's also advocated for Talkspace and been in their commercials. And you know, as someone who has personally battled issues with mental health and knows that it can be a daily struggle at times, I think advocating for therapy and making it less of a stigma is a wonderful thing. And the fact that Talkspace makes it more convenient for people who need to talk to a professional is amazing. And the fact that Demi is behind that is also amazing. I'm sure that she has been and still is a positive force in many people's lives. And in the future, I hope we see more of that and less of these, froyo stories and California sober and things that are potentially damaging. And for her sake, I hope she has a top-notch PR person. All right. That is going to conclude the second segment of this episode of the GSMC Entertainment Podcast. I hope you are enjoying what you are hearing so far, and do not fret, because I have much more to discuss after the break, including America's favorite game show. I'll leave you with that little clue as to which one I'm referring to. And following that, the Oscars and the films nominated for Best Picture, and some of my opinions on those, so stick around.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back. You are listening to the GSMC Entertainment Podcast, brought to you by GSMC Podcast Network. In our last segment, I went into Demi Lovato's feud with a Los Angeles frozen yogurt shop called The Big Chill, in which she publicly blasted them for having labeling she found triggering, such as the word sugar-free and guilt-free. The yogurt shop responded and let her know they were just trying to be conscious of those who are vegan or have celiac issues or dietary restrictions. This did not satisfy Demi, as she continued to go after the shop and call them diet culture vultures. I also went into some of the other recent headlines involving Demi, as there have been a few lately, with her announcing that she is so-called California sober, meaning she is choosing to smoke marijuana and drink alcohol in moderation, which has some of her close friends and family concerned. I also touched on her struggle with being diagnosed bipolar and her mental health journey. Moving right along to America's favorite game show. Do. Do you know which one I'm referring to? What is Jeopardy? Jeopardy has been on for more than 5 decades, premiering on NBC on March 30th, 1964. And as most of you know, sadly, Alex Trebek, the host of the show, for a record-breaking 37 years, passed away after his battle with cancer on November 8th of 2020. And this was obviously very devastating to a lot of people and left people wondering what would become of the beloved game show. Most importantly, will it continue, and who could possibly come close to filling his shoes? Well, as many of you have seen, there have been celebrity guest hosts filling in, which I will get into, and also discuss the future of Jeopardy. Now, Jeopardy definitely holds a special place in my life, cheesy as that sounds, but some of my earliest memories are of me sitting on my grandma's lap as she watched Jeopardy, hollering out the answers. Her getting frustrated with me asking questions and trying to chime in as well, and constantly being shushed so she could hear the show and play along from her recliner. So this kind of stuck with me as I grew older. I continued to watch it through my adolescence and young adulthood, and it is still one of my favorite game shows to this day. Sadly, my grandmother passed away from COVID-19 last year, as many unfortunately have, so Jeopardy is now much more sentimental and is a nice memory and a connection to her. Anyway, sorry for the sob story. Getting into the hosts that we have seen, there have been a series of journalists and other public figures taking over to host the show. Firstly, being Ken Jennings, who hosted from January 4th through February 19th of this year. And in 2004, Ken Jennings set the record for the longest winning streak in Jeopardy history after 74 consecutive wins, which earned him a total of $2.52 million. Since then, Jennings has competed in multiple Jeopardy tournaments, including the Ultimate Tournament of Champions, IBM Challenge, Battle of the Decades, All-Star Games, etc. So Jennings went on to earn his coveted GOAT title, greatest of all time, for those of you that don't know, after winning the greatest of all time tournament. Later that year, he officially joined the Jeopardy as family as a segment producer. Fans had mixed feelings about his time on the show as the host. A lot of them saying it was weird or hard for them to see him as the host and not seeing Trebek anymore, which is totally understandable. While some say they appreciated his effort and appreciated the special tribute he gave in the beginning of the show, they certainly did not want him as a permanent host. All right, I'm going to jump ahead now to when Katie Couric hosted the show from March 8th to March 19th of 2021. Most of you know Katie from The Today Show. Katie Couric is also an award-winning journalist, presenter, author, and the first woman to guest host Jeopardy. She is the founder of Katie Couric Media and a multimedia news and production company which produces documentaries, digital series, podcasts, so on and so forth, about social and cultural issues. Throughout her career, Couric has held multiple hosting positions at ABC, CBS, and NBC. She also served as Yahoo's global news anchor from 2013 to 2017. Fans also had mixed feelings about her hosting the show. A lot of people were thrilled to have her because she is the first woman to host the show, as I mentioned. And they were also hashtagging International Women's Day, which was fitting because International Women's Day was the first night she hosted, Monday, March 8th. So that was pretty cool. However, with the good always comes some bad. One fan quoted, "There will never be a host like Alex Trebek. Nonetheless, Ken Jennings has done a superb job and is the best replacement. I won't be watching Jeopardy until you bring Ken back. Katie Couric's monotone delivery is just too painful to watch." End quote. On the bright side, another fan wrote, "I don't know why, but I'm finding Katie Couric oddly comforting as the guest host of Jeopardy. She's my favorite so far." End quote. Personally, I kind of feel the same as that person did. I liked her more than Ken and agreed that she did have a comforting vibe about her. Moving on from Katie was then Dr. Oz, who got, I would say, the worst reviews from fans out of the host so far, which I will jump into here shortly. He hosted the show from March 22nd to April 2nd, and he's most famous for hosting the Dr. Oz show, as I'm sure many of you have heard of or seen. And he gained popularity after appearing on the Oprah Winfrey Show back in 2004. A little more about Dr. Oz. He's won 10 daytime Emmys for the Dr. Oz show and is an attending physician at New York Presbyterian Columbia Medical Center. He's authored over 400 original publications, book chapters, medical books. He's received numerous patents and still performs heart surgery to this day. He also authors a syndicated newspaper column in 175 markets internationally and has a quarterly bookazine with Hearst titled The Good Life. Dr. Oz is also the proud author of 8 New York best-selling books, including his most recent, Food Can Fix It. So clearly, with all of that said, he has many impressive accomplishments, but unfortunately I do not think hosting a game show will go down as one of them. In the past, Oz has found himself under a bit of scrutiny for numerous things, such as peddling controversial medical advice to his fans, and he was actually scolded by a Senate panel in 2014 for hyping dubious weight loss products. In 2015, a group of doctors sent a letter to Columbia University asking for his dismissal from the medical school's faculty. And in April of 2020, after the arrival of COVID-19 pandemic, Oz said he misspoke after saying on Fox News that the opening of schools may only cost us 2% to 3% in terms of total morality, which might be a trade-off some folks will consider. Wow, pretty intense thing to say there. Jeopardy fans obviously were fully aware of all of these things and were not shy to voice their displeasure with Dr. Oz hosting the show, saying things like, choosing Oz to host Jeopardy was the most disgraceful and disrespectful thing to Alex's legacy. Does this mean he'll make up the answers, like on his show? Some said they felt so let down by the producers and that they were longtime viewers and really resent that they screwed around with the tone by allowing yahoos to host the show. Actor and comedian John Daly, who has appeared on and worked on a lot of Comedy Central shows, even had some choice words to say about Oz hosting that I am not able to fully say on this podcast, but I will give you an idea. He, quote, said, "Bleep you, Jeopardy, no bleeping way." So you can imagine, fill in the blanks there. So yeah, not so good for Dr. Oz. Wow, quite a strong reaction there. On a lighter note, the next host has been getting great reviews from Jeopardy fans. Last week, Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers filled in as guest host from April 5th to April 16th. Aaron Rodgers is a Super Bowl MVP and 9-time NFL Pro Bowl selection. And over the course of his career, Rodgers, has established himself as one of the NFL's leading quarterbacks. Now, if you're wondering why we've gone from a Jeopardy champion, a journalist, and a doctor to a football player, Aaron Rodgers is also a celebrity Jeopardy champion himself, after competing on the program in 2015. Within the first few hours of Aaron hosting, fans were giving rave reviews about the quarterback's hosting debut, saying things like, quote, "I like Aaron Rodgers on Jeopardy, dare say my favorite guest host so far," end quote. And also, Aaron Rodgers is going to be the best arm in the NFL history to Jeopardy host is a cool life. Also, another fan said, I didn't know I needed Aaron Rodgers as a Jeopardy host until now. And finally, another fan tweeted that the best guest host of Jeopardy so far is Aaron Rodgers. So, let's see. I personally think he's been doing a great job. I have to agree. The best so far. Rodgers also addressed the idea of being the full-time host of Jeopardy while still playing in the NFL, saying, quote, I don't think I'd need to give up football to do it. They film 46 days a year. I worked 187 this year in Green Bay. That gives me 178 days to do Jeopardy. Rodgers told a source that he feels like he could fit 46 into that 178 days and make it work. It would be a dream job for sure, and if I'm not shy at all about saying I want the job. That's how he went into it, and he would really look forward to having the opportunity to be in the mix. All right, so this leads us to the current host, someone I am personally a big fan of, Anderson Cooper. Anderson is hosting the show from April 19th to April 30th. He is a frequent competitor in Jeopardy's Power Players tournament. Excuse me. And Anderson is a multi-award winning anchor of CNN's Anderson Cooper 360 and host of Anderson Cooper Full Circle. It's a streaming show which airs on CNN's digital properties. He's also worked in more than 40 countries and has covered nearly all major news events around the world, often reporting from the scene. In addition to his shows on CNN, Cooper is also a regular correspondent for CBS's 60 Minutes and an author who has topped the New York Times bestsellers list. All right, so following Anderson, there are a few more people lined up to give hosting the show a shot, including Bill Whitaker, 60 Minutes correspondent, Buzzy Cohen, former Jeopardy champion, Mayim Bialik, actress and neuroscientist, Savannah Guthrie, NBC News Today co-anchor, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, CNN chief medical correspondent, George Stephanopoulos, ABC's Good Morning America co-anchor, Robin Roberts, ABC Good Morning America co-anchor, and finally, LeVar Burton, actor and former host of Reading Rainbow, who I don't know if you saw, but recently in headlines there was a petition going around to have LeVar host the show. So that should be exciting, and I'm glad they got him scheduled. So some of these hosts will be considered for the permanent slot, but Jeopardy will take its time and may not replace Trebek until the show begins its 38th season in syndication in September. If you haven't had a chance to tune in to see how the guest hosts are doing, I highly recommend doing so. No one will ever compare to how Alex Trebek did it, obviously, but it is fun to see a fresh face every couple of weeks to do their best to honor him. Jeopardy airs weeknights at 7 p.m. on ABC.
All right. That is going to conclude segment 3. Make sure to stick around for our last segment coming up after the break, where I will be diving into the upcoming Academy Awards.
Golden State Media Concepts bring you Book Review Podcast, a haven for bookworms of all ages and the widest genres, from mystery to memoirs, romance to comedy, fantasy to sci-fi. If you love to read, this is a podcast for you. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Book Review Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Entertainment Podcast. In our last segment, I talked about what the game show Jeopardy has been doing since the passing of Alex Trebek. The show has had a series of celebrity guest hosts who have appeared each couple of weeks, some getting great reviews from fans, and others not so much. The first host was champion Ken Jennings, followed by Katie Couric, Dr. Oz, Aaron Rodgers, and now Anderson Cooper. The show will continue to have guest hosts throughout the remainder of the season and will likely pick one of those guests as a permanent host for the following season. Okay, without further ado, I've been teasing this a bit in the last few segments. It is time for Patrick's Pop Culture Pick, which for today's show will be the 93rd Academy Awards. This year, the show will be hosted at Union Station, Los Angeles, Dolby Theater at the Hollywood and Highland Center. All right, so this will be honoring the movies released in 2020. I am personally a big fan of the Oscars and have been for many years. I'm a lover of film and always try to make it a point to watch all of the nominated films before the ceremony. Ironically, I actually traveled from Salt Lake City to Los Angeles on Thursday to see and spend some time with some friends and family, and am staying right near Hollywood and Highland area, so perhaps I'll try to pop over and catch a glimpse of some of the action on Sunday. The usual buzz I have about the show is definitely a bit more amplified, being so close to where it's all going down. Very exciting. Now, as I mentioned, I do try to watch all of the Best Picture nominees among the other films that are nominated in other categories before the award show. So I'm going to be going into the ones that I have seen and give my take on them and let you know which of them are my favorite and who I suspect will win or want to win. All right, so the Best Picture nominees are The Father, Judas and the Black Messiah, Mank, Minari, Nomadland, Promising Young Woman, Sound of Metal, The Trial of the Chicago 7. All right, so unfortunately I have not gotten around to seeing all of these films just yet, but I have seen 5 out of the 7 nominated films, but I will be giving you a little info on all of them still. So, all right, let's jump into these films. The first film nominated is The Father, and this one I have not seen yet. It stars Anthony Hopkins, Olivia Colman, and Mark Gatiss, and it is about a man who refuses all assistance from his daughter as he ages, as he tries to make a sense of his changing circumstances. He begins to doubt his loved ones, his own mind, and even the fabric of his reality. I've heard great things about this film and cannot wait to watch it. I am a big fan of Anthony Hopkins. He always does such an amazing job, so I'm not surprised to see that this film is nominated, and he is also nominated for Best Actor in a leading role for the film. Okay, the second film nominated is Judas and the Black Messiah, starring Daniel Kaluuya, Lakeith Stanfield, and Jesse Plemons. I have not seen this film either. However, I have also heard great things about it, especially about Daniel Kaluuya's performance, in which he is nominated for Best Actor in a Supporting Role. This film is about Bill O'Neill, who infiltrates the Black Panther Party per FBI agent Mitchell and J. Edgar Hoover, as party chairman Fred Hampton ascends, falling for a fellow revolutionary en route. A battle wages for O'Neill's soul. All right, so really looking forward to seeing this one as well. I would love to try and do so before the awards, so I'll definitely be trying to cram that in. The next film we have is Mank, finally one I have seen. This one's directed by David Fincher, who has directed other films such as Seven, Zodiac, Gone Girl, and The Social Network. And the film stars Gary Oldman, Amanda Seyfried, Lily Collins, and a few others. It's based in 1930s Hollywood and is reevaluated through the eyes of scathing social critic and alcoholic screenwriter Herman J. Mankiewicz as he races to finish the screenplay of Citizen Kane, which came out in 1941. All right, so as I mentioned, I have seen this film, and if I'm being honest, I was a little bored with it. However, I will say that the acting was very good. Gary Oldman does an especially good job in the film as Harry Mankiewicz. I also thought it was neat that the film is in black and white, as it would have been in that time. All right, so the next film is Minari. I have actually really been wanting to see this movie and will probably get around to watching it tonight before the Oscars tomorrow. This stars Steven Yeun, Yari Han, Alan S. Kim. Steven Yeun, you might be familiar with from The Walking Dead. He's been getting a lot of buzz for his role in this film and how well he does in it, which is why he is nominated for Best Actor in a Leading Role. This film's about a Korean family that moves to Arkansas on a farm in search of the American dream. Amidst the challenges of this new life in the strange and rugged Ozarks, they discover the undeniable resilience of family and what really makes a home. All right, yeah, can't wait to see that one. The next one is Nomadland, which stars Frances McDormand, David Stratham, and Linda May. And it's about a woman in her 60s who, after losing everything in the Great Recession, embarks on a journey through the American West, living as a van-dwelling modern-day nomad. I have seen this film as well, and I did enjoy it. It was good. Frances McDormand is such an amazing actress and does a great job in the film. If I am being honest, the film is a little anticlimactic, but still held my attention. I had a much greater appreciation for the film when discussing it with a friend afterwards. We kind of talked about the different aspects of it and kind of asked the question, like, why she chose to live the life she does, because throughout the film, we find out that she does have other options available to her. So kind of it's kind of fun to watch with a friend and kind of get into those deeper questions after watching it. So anyway, Promising Young Woman is the next nominated film for Best Picture. It's about a young woman traumatized by a tragic event in her past. She seeks out a vengeance against those who crossed her path. I did get a chance to see this one, and I liked it a lot as well. I went into it having only seen the trailer maybe once or twice, and it did have parts that I was totally not expecting, which was fun. I thought it was going to be a bit more of like a scary or violent even film, but to my surprise, and after reading more about the film, I found out that it was meant to be a dark comedy. It makes a lot more sense knowing that. Carey Mulligan does a great job as the lead in this film. It also stars Bo Burnham and Alison Brie. And Carey Mulligan is also nominated for Best Lead Actress for her performance in this. So, very cool. Next, we have the trial of the Chicago Seven. The story of 7 people on trial stemming from various charges surrounding the uprising at the 1968 Democratic National Convention in Chicago, Illinois. This is written and directed by Aaron Sorkin and stars Eddie Redmayne, Alex Sharp, and Sacha Baron Cohen. As I mentioned, the film was written and directed by Aaron Sorkin, who is also known for the show The West Wing and movies such as Molly's Game, Steve Jobs, and also for one of my favorite shows, The Newsroom, which had a few seasons on HBO. I watched this movie this week and thought it was very good. In my opinion, I think this one is definitely a front runner, just judging off the ones that I have seen. I admittedly had not heard about this trial, so I went into it blind, which I like doing with movies. I feel it makes for a more exciting or rewarding experience when watching the film. The acting by all of these actors in the film was so good. In particular, Sacha Baron Cohen, who we know most famously for his role as Borat. I always love to see him in films that are less comical or less silly, although he does have some comedic bits in this film as well. He is also nominated for Best Actor in a Supporting Role for his part in this movie. All right, finally, my absolute favorite of the nominated films, and honestly just one of my now favorite films, The Sound of Metal. This is about a heavy metal drummer's life, and it's thrown into a free fall when he begins to lose his hearing. The film stars Riz Ahmed, Olivia Cook, and Paul Raci. You may also know Riz Ahmed from the HBO series The Night Of. He was also in a couple episodes of Girls, which was also on HBO. He was in the OA on Netflix, which is one of my all-time favorite shows. This movie was just so beautifully done, in my opinion. I was hooked the entire time. As I mentioned in the description of the movie, Riz's character begins to lose his hearing and eventually becomes fully deaf. Little personal note, in high school, when, most kids will take like a Spanish class or French class, I took sign language for 2 years. And in the film, Riz Ahmed learned sign language and had to actually learn sign language for about a year. I think he studied it before doing the role. So yeah, I was very interested in taking that class in school. We not only learned how to sign, but also a lot about the deaf culture. And the movie did an excellent job of capturing that. I highly recommend this one. Riz Ahmed is nominated for Best Leading Actor for this role as well. This is definitely my top pick, and the film that I hope takes home the prize on Sunday night. Again, the Oscars are this Sunday, April 25th at 6:30 p.m. on ABC. Okay, that's going to conclude that segment and also our show for today. I have had such a great time with this first episode, and I hope you enjoyed what we dove into and spending the hour with me. I hope to join you all again soon to talk more entertainment stories. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Entertainment Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast. part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.